Hello, and welcome to the Brave New Weed podcast. And now, here's your host, Joe Dolce.
Welcome to episode 75. 75 of the Brave New Weed podcast, folks. These are high-minded conversations for the post-prohibition era. I'm your host, Joe Dolce. I'm joined once again by Matthew Hendershot. Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Joe. Greetings from Germany. Greetings from locked down Europe. Apparently, we're not allowed to fly back to the United States right now.
Greetings from the lockdown world. This is our new world in the Corona era here. And we will be talking about the ever-stimulating conversation of cannabis and Corona. But before we do that, let me just tell you guys that this is a really interesting episode. We've got Michael Backus back. Michael is really one of the renowned cannabis experts of the world. And he has invented a new product that promises to deliver exactly what it says. So if you're like me or like anyone else and has, had one happy experience with cannabis one day and one tired experience the next day with the exact same strain, get ready. This is a new process that is going to deliver, that he promises will deliver the exact results that it puts on the label. But before we talk to Michael in this really interesting interview, I want to talk about some news, Matthew, because there's some interesting things happening. Where do you want to begin? You want to start with Corona, or do you want to start with the federal government locking down on weed maps?
Well, since we brought it up, why don't we touch on some Corona stuff? It's obviously front of mind for everyone right now, and I do think it's something to be taken very seriously. But obviously, our role here is to let's do a little bit of discussion about how Corona and this whole pandemic now is going to affect the cannabis markets and cannabis use in general.
All right. So what do you see? What's news in the world of cannabis and Corona cannabis? What's new?
Sure. Well, the number one thing I think that everybody is asking about is from the supply side, right? Like, are we still going to be able to have access? And the answer to that is likely yes, right? So a lot of growers, especially in North America and the United States and in many countries all over, we're not importing and exporting our cannabis that often. Some places, yes. Some places, less likely. But yeah, if it's grown in the United States and it's transported in the United States, like, you're probably not going to be majorly impacted by Corona and these sort of Corona enforced embargoes, I guess is the way to put it, right?
All right.
So I think the supply side is going to be fine. However, one of the things that we might actually see majorly affected by this is in the vaporization world. So a lot of these single-use vape products, or even some of the more reusable vape products, the actual hardware itself is manufactured entirely from China or in part in China and then shipped and assembled elsewhere. And I think that as this virus has impacted China's economy and its workforce, obviously those supply capabilities are going to go down, their production capabilities are going to go down, and then the export of that product to the United States is also going to be impacted. So we might really see it with vaporization products when it comes to the supply chain.
I want to talk about social distancing in cannabis, though, because this is an important one, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and just in the same way that the CDC has issued, stay 1 or 2 meters away from people, don't shake hands, wash your hands regularly and stuff like that. That sort of stuff also applies to social cannabis use, which, a lot of people are solo smokers, but it's a really social activity for a lot of people. And if you think about it, hitting that joint and then passing it to the guy on your left, you might as well just be here, share some of my Corona if you're infected.
Just touch your face. Yeah, touch your face. Okay, so don't share a joint. Has the industry sort of used its imagination to come up with anything provocative or protective for us?
Well, there is potentially the opportunity, and this is I'll mention one product that I came across, which was it's sort of like a bong condom. It's a personal mouthpiece for use with a bong that you hold, and then as you pass the bong to your co-smoker, they would have their own as well, much in the same way that you would get like a plastic tip for a hookah, right?
Yeah, it's a bongdom. Is that what we're called?
A bongdom.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad the industry is rising to the occasion. I'm glad
I think you'll see a little bit
it.
of investment into some of that, and I think our very agile entrepreneurs might be able to corner a portion of the market. And you know what might come back, Joe, is those long sort of cigarette tips, but for joints.
That's
like
cool. Actually, I think that would add a little elegance to the whole process, don't you think?
Yeah, a little Cruella de Vil-esque action.
I like that. Okay, I can see. I'm glad we're finding the positive side of Corona here, Matthew.
High society indeed. But
as it were, yes.
The important takeaway here is obviously this is something that is going to be affecting all of our lives for many months to come as this pandemic comes into its own, and then hopefully we work our way through it without too much casualty and loss. But just be smart, be safe, do the right things, wash your hands, be self-responsible, and
don't share that joint.
Maybe don't share that joint.
Smoke your own. Yeah, as a matter of fact. Okay, what else happened in the news this week other than Corona?
Well, one of the interesting things that you kind of touched on quickly is that the federal prosecutors have launched a probe and have subpoenaed the company that is Weedmaps.
Yes, Weedmaps tells everybody where to go to buy their cannabis, for those who don't know. But most people do know, because it's a pretty big company at this point.
Sort of like a Yelp for cannabis, right? And it's only going to work for legal states, right? Like if you're in Texas, they're not going to help you find a guy that's going to sneak you something on a street corner. But
so what are the feds looking at? What are they doing?
Well, it's a little bit, they're being a little bit cagey about it. Obviously, it's an ongoing investigation, so they're not just going to show all the cards in their hands. But it's been in the news for a while. Weedmaps has faced scrutiny before about the fact that anyone can go and register their business on Weedmaps as a dispensary or as a provider of product. So, Joe, if you wanted to, for example, you could go and say, "Oh, I have Joe's Best Bud Dispensary."
Yes.
And you could sign up, and then Weedmaps would be facilitating the purchase directly from you. I think you brought up the sort of Uber analogy of Uber saying
what I know is that Weedmaps does not do any vetting of the companies.
Right.
So
they
claim complete, they have no responsibility here. But it's the same problem that people who work for Uber find. Uber, believe this or not, they actually say that if you're a driver for Uber, you're not an employee. You are a user of our software. And they try to avoid all claim, all responsibility, all payroll tax, all employee benefits through that. Now, the government is not really accepting that line anymore, and I think it's disgusting, frankly. But I think Weedmaps is doing the same sort of bullshit. We're a software company. We're just enabling somebody to connect to somebody else. They're really not vetting what's going on, right?
Right. So the core issue that they seem to be looking into here is that federal prosecutors want the information on these registered illegal and unlicensed dispensary businesses. They want to know who was signing up, who doesn't have their proper paperwork, because it all comes down to making sure that everybody who is a dispensary is compliant with the very fundamental state laws of cannabis legalization.
And I think that's a good idea, but I really worry about, I wonder if they're going to get patient records. This is something that we're going to have to keep looking at and watching.
Well, yeah,
carefully,
that's several steps down the line, right? They would have to first get the information from the dispensary, which from the federal subpoena they should probably likely get. And then if they end up going to those businesses themselves and are able to subpoena something like patient records, I think that that's a step beyond where they're at right now. But
let's hope it is, because that would be really creepy, I think.
They're basically, and it's very valid. Like you said, they are trying to make sure that if you are signed up and representing yourself as a dispensary in a legal state, that you are legally and actually licensed and compliant.
And I have to say, I support that, because if you believe in legalization, there has to be oversight, right? It's the way they clamped down on bootleggers when they ended the alcohol prohibition in the 1930s. You can't just go making your own shit. It's too creepy. Nobody can control it. It's a lot like what's going on in the CBD unregulated market today. But that's a whole other topic that
I would agree. There is one other piece of this There is one other piece of this, Joe, that because the way that we've framed it up so far, it does make Weedmaps seem fairly innocent in this, but they are also probing for records on some donations or some contributions to certain political campaigns for local officials, state officials, and federal officials. So there might have been some, hand money exchanges, these sorts of things, donations and support to campaign contributions, those kind of things that Weedmaps might have been involved in to maybe get people on their side to look the other way if they got the right office. But
okay. Worth thinking about, worth looking at.
Indeed.
And the final bit of news came to me from a doctor who sent it to me and basically said it might be a very good idea to start brushing your teeth with cannabinoids. Have you read this story?
You did send this along to me, and I did read it. It's kind of an interesting thing. So some study that was recently published has pointed out that cannabinoids have the potential to be used as an effective antibacterial agent against dental plaque-associated bacteria.
Well, it is antimicrobial. We've known this for a long time. And
right.
It sort of makes sense. I mean, I guess... So brush your teeth with some cannabinoid, or are they going to start putting cannabinoids in the water somehow once they figure out how to make it water soluble? That would be interesting as opposed to fluoride, right?
Right. We've obviously, I mean, currently you can go out and you can buy Colgate with hemp seed oil in it, right? So it's already something that is out there and available if you want to. And I've seen CBD toothpastes already. Like that's something that exists. And it's just pointing out that that's actually maybe very valid and a very good use of these cannabinoids.
Interesting. I would just say, go on, please.
No, it's just, whether or not we get to the point of, obviously, like when you brought up fluoride, one of the things that this study does point out is that cannabinoids don't have the same problem as these antimicrobials because we're not seeing resistance mutations in bacteria, right?
Yeah.
So we've already seen like fluoride-resistant streptococcus, and we're treating water for that. So like you said, maybe we're getting CBD-infused water out of our taps eventually. I don't know. That's a big.
I don't know. I don't think so. But I do want to say that before everybody goes plunking down a lot of money for CBD toothpaste, we need to know at what strength the CBD is actually working and how much is in the toothpaste. And we don't know that yet. We don't know what level is antimicrobial. So don't go spend $20 on a tube of toothpaste at this point would be my counsel. And if you want to use CBD, get a good CBD, maybe throw a drop on your toothbrush and add it to your toothpaste that way. That seems to make more sense, right?
Well, either way, it's just good to know, and I'll in advance say pardon for the pun. It's just good to know that this is one more way that cannabis can put a smile on your face. The Brave New Weed podcast is an advocate and supporter of the Medical Cannabis Mentor platform. Medical Cannabis Mentor is an evidence-based educational platform for doctors, dispensaries, and patients that uses state-of-the-art online learning technology to educate you in today's modern cannabis world. You can find out more information by visiting medicalcannabismentor.com.
Here's another way that cannabis can put a smile on your face. This main interview today is with Michael Backus, as I said at the top of the show. And Michael has created a way of processing cannabis that retains the original entourage in the plant. What he has discovered is that the way cannabis is cured really subjects it to a whole lot of heat. And in that process of curing and heating, and think of lettuce, right? We don't want lettuce that's subjected to a lot of heat. But in that process, we lose apparently a whole lot of the original entourage and terpenes and different compounds that are in the plant. So he's figured out a way of using temperature to really retain the original components. And he says that when you use one of his product is called Perfect, that it is a whole different experience. Even more, he's saying that his product, Perfect, will deliver the exact effect it advertises. So he's got 3 strains that are coming onto the market in April. One is called Happy Camper. Guess what it does? One is called Pick Me Up. I want some of that. And the other is called Nightcap. And he said it's really, really a fantastic thing. And it's so different and it's so powerful that just 1.5 grams is equal to the potency of 1/8 of an ounce. So without me telling you any more about this, let's go to Michael and let him tell us about Perfect, his new super terpy weed.
My name is Michael Backus. I'm the Chief Product Officer and co-founder of Perfect, a company that specializes in premium entourage blends of cannabis chemistry.
Wow. Okay. So that's deep, Michael Backus. Thank you for joining us on the Brave New Weed podcast today. Let's talk first of all. So when I met you, you had just left Cornerstone, a collective dispensary in Los Angeles. You were just embarking upon writing Cannabis Pharmacy, right? Probably, I would assume, one of the best-selling cannabis books of the last decade. I'm assuming that. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's done okay. It remains one of Hachette's best-selling back titles. So
amazing.
They're very happy. It looks like we might do a third. Looks like we'll do a third edition next year.
So, great book, great asset. I see it frequently. And then you went to do some other things with other companies that shall probably remain nameless unless you want to talk about them. Phytex, for one.
Yeah, Phytex was a bit. Basically, it was a mattress that we put below the building so that Ethan Russo could jump out of GW Pharmaceuticals and not hit the pavement.
That's very nice of you. That was such a nice thing to do. And then here we are today, producing entourage quality. Say it again, please, what you're doing. Perfect.
Premium entourage blend. So what we're basically
Let's
doing,
break this down for people like me with small brains, okay? Come on.
No worries. So the idea is, one of the things that those who like cannabis enjoy is this idea of that the cannabis plant happens to produce a lot of different compounds that are pharmacologically active. And different plants produce different combinations of those compounds. And that's responsible for the subtle differences between some cultivars. Like Jack Herrera, a popular cultivar, it has a tendency to be stimulating and clear-headed with some pain relief. And that's due to the presence of a few compounds in Jack Herrera plants, including terpinolene and THC, and a little myrcene. And other plants produce different compounds. So you may get an OG Kush that's limonene, caryophyllene, and myrcene, and it has a slightly different high than Jack Herrera. But the problem is that if you want to have an effect that the plant doesn't produce, because these compounds, their production is limited by the genes inside the plant.
And the sun and the climate, I presume, as well, right? But the growing
climate to some degree, that could be the amount, okay? But what it's capable of producing, whether it produces myrcene or whether it produces limonene, isn't the climate. Those are the genes. How much myrcene or how much limonene is going to be the climate and the growing conditions and, how nice you are to the plant.
Got it. The genes are giving you the base. The climate is determining the quantity, let's say, right? The volume.
Exactly.
Okay, good.
So
all right.
What I do is basically, for a while I was involved in a big cannabis breeding project, and we were trying to breed everything. And the problem is that's slow. Okay, it takes a lot of time. And the alternative is, kind of dark art stuff like, genetically modifying the plant, and I'm not into that. And because there are just too many unknowns there, you don't know what you're doing when you start to mess with Mother Nature. And so what I decided to do was I decided to basically try to make the entourage effect, these groups of compounds produced by specific plants, make them a little more portable, so that basically I could If I wanted a plant that kind of tasted like OG Kush but gave me the effects of Blue Dream, I could do that by blending different varieties together, like OG Kush and Blue Dream. But the interesting thing was, I discovered a dirty little secret.
Ooh, now I want to hear.
Cannabis.
Tell me everything.
Yeah.
Go on. Go. What's the dirty secret?
The dirty little secret is that when cannabis is processed, it loses a lot of the compounds of interest. It keeps the cannabinoids. It keeps one terpene, beta caryophyllene, the cockroach of terpenes, because you can't kill it.
Can't kill it.
Can't kill it. And it's funny because, I mean, that's interesting. And the reason is beta caryophyllene is the one terpene that survives commercial cannabis smuggling. So if you're smuggling hash from Turkey or cannabis from Panama or Colombia, when it shows up in the U.S., it'll have beta caryophyllene in it. It will have lost all the lighter compounds. But the peppery smell from back in the day that you associated with Panama Red or Colombian Gold was directly attributable to the remaining beta caryophyllene that survived the trip.
Did it lose the other ones because the temperature was too high, or the age aged it out?
Both.
Okay.
So it's a combination of the temperature, hot conditions, not being refrigerated, and the time it takes to do the transit.
Come back to your dirty secret, though. You discovered that the process. What's this process? Are we talking about just
in other words? So let's say I want
curing?
Let's say I want to make so if you dry the plant, you start to lose terpenes. If you package the plant and leave it sitting in air at room temperature, you lose terpenes. In the case of myrcene, you can lose half the myrcene in the flower, untouched flower, in 45 days. And that's why you got to look at the date on the cannabis you're buying. And you have to insist on buying fresh cannabis, because if it's not fresh, it's not going to be what the plant produced. It's going to be what's left of what the plant produced.
That's a great sales line. But how in the world are you, even in a dispensary in a very regulated state like California, how are you going to get anything fresh? It has to go through miles of regulatory approval and processing, doesn't it?
Yeah. Number one, temperature control.
Yeah.
Okay. So from the time we harvest, from the time it gets to the dispensary, we keep it cold. And once it's in the dispensary, we keep it cold. In other words, we look at this thing like a head of lettuce, all right? They don't keep the lettuce in a hot truck for 6 weeks before they ship it to you.
Yeah.
They try to get it to you quickly.
Yeah.
Cannabis, effectively, is produce. And if you start to treat it like produce, then you don't have that issue.
Interesting. So it's curing in the cold? It can't cure in the cold. It has to cure in a certain amount of dry heat, doesn't it?
Well, no, and there's a problem there. Okay, so here's what we did that's different. Okay, is we realized that if you want to ship a pre-roll or a jar of ground flour, in our case, because we're doing some magic to this that I'll describe right now.
Okay.
So what we do is when we build a blend, we do two things. One is when we choose a cultivar to use in our blends, we take a portion of it and we dry it the normal way, and we have it tested so we know how much we've lost of the terpene profile. And then we take a portion and harvest it and immediately fresh freeze it. And when we fresh freeze it, then what we do is we extract it, and then we replace the portion that we lost in the curing in the form of sauce that we blend in the plant.
Tell listeners what sauce is, please.
So sauce is fascinating. Sauce is basically can be made two ways. You can make it with hydrocarbon extraction, like butane. You can make it with ethanol extraction. You can make it even with mechanical extraction, where you make water hash and then you squeeze it, which leaves behind the crystalline THCA, and gives you this terpene-rich sauce. It's called a terpene rich extract, TRE, and you take that TRE, that terpene rich extract, and you blend it into ground dried flour, and you can restore the entourage to the level associated with the living plant, not the dried plant. And then interesting things happen, because when you inhale that, you're getting the entourage of the live plant. And most people have never felt anything close to it. And especially for some of the most delicate terpenes, like myrcene. It's really funny because, you read all this stuff about myrcene sedative. Myrcene's responsible for the indica effect. It's total nonsense.
You told me that years ago, as a matter of fact. You were the first person to tell me that.
Exactly. And I was using it off the literature at the time, and I was completely wrong. And the great thing about this process I'm going through is, I'm killing all my darlings. I'm having to revise a lot of the fundamental things I know about how cannabis works. But what's great, it gives me incredible predictability now of effect. And that's what makes perfect. What makes perfect are these blends we're doing that actually do what they
say they're going to do
on the label
consistently.
Consistently.
Oh man,
consistently.
Okay.
And there's not the population variation that everybody always tells us we're supposed to expect.
Okay,
right?
Too many questions. Hold on, slow down. First of all, well, what I really want to know is what they feel like. But hold on, I want to know 3 of the things of your own history that you are now revising. What are the darlings you've had to kill, other than the fact that myrcene is not necessarily sedative, which I've always thought it was because you told me it was, and I swear it makes me tired.
Yeah, and it really doesn't. In fact, it's incredibly short acting, and they recently found out that myrcene works at a new cannabinoid receptor that people are saying is the CB3 receptor. And it's wild. What happens is that when you inhale a myrcene flower, it interacts with this receptor TRPV1, and TRPV1 basically is the capsaicin receptor. It's the thing that you basically evolved to play with something spicy or help you to deal with the heat, outside temperature. And but what's fascinating about it, it's basically just analgesic. That's what it is. Yeah. So what it does is it increases. It's that instant numbness you get from fresh high myrcene cannabis, and it's rare. That feeling's rare. Most people have only had it if they've smoked really fresh OG Kush, or really fresh terps. It's not a common experience at all. And the reason is, the second you put a piece of high myrcene cannabis into a grinder and grind it, you've atomized it. It's in the air. It's never going to be in you.
Interesting. Okay. Tell me about another sacred baby that you had to kill. Sacred cow.
The sacred baby is that everybody's different.
Yeah.
That people vary in their response to cannabis, so much so that you can't predict outcome. And that's just nonsense. What the problem is, the products vary. So the products vary crop to crop, jar to jar.
I think they vary joint to joint or bowl to bowl, frankly.
No question.
How can that be, though? You're buying the plant; it's all ground together at a certain point. Is it because the heat, the evaporation, the grinding, in fact, is changing it?
What it is it degrades.
Degrading.
I mean, look. If you bought a head of lettuce and you put it on your counter to make salads, the first couple of salads would be pretty great, and then it's like, wow, this stuff's starting to get limp. This stuff's starting to look funny. This stuff's starting to smell funny. I don't want to eat this at all. I want to throw it away. But what we do instead is we refrigerate it. We take care of it. Okay?
Right.
I mean, what I'm bringing to cannabis is an idea that I didn't come up with. It's an idea that Clarence Birdsall came up with, which was people wanted fresh corn in California when they moved out there from Iowa. So Birdsall figured out a way to freeze corn in a way that you could thaw it and it still tasted like corn. And what I'm doing is figuring out a way to keep cannabis intact long enough so that when it gets to you, it's like it was when it was growing in the garden. That's it. There's nothing more to it. But I just happen to be the first to do it.
What stimulated the idea, though?
Desperation.
For what? For another job? I don't think so. Go on.
No. So desperation. So what happened is that my partner in the company Perfect, Dean Hollander, approached me in December 18 about doing cannabis blends. And I just said, yes. I'd been doing them since I was 15, back in the 70s in Tucson, Arizona, where I'd mix, Thai stick and Colombian gold and Kona to change the effect. And it was interesting because Kona was probably the first cannabis I ever had from Hawaii that actually had an entourage beyond beta caryophyllene and THC, because it was a what I know today, it was a pinene limonene strain, and it was the first time I ever had those monoterps, and I was fascinated by them. And so when Dean approached me about doing blends, I said yes, and so I started blending strains together, and based on their terp profiles and their cannabinoid profiles, and the response from kind of our consumer testing panel was fantastic, but the lab results were terrible. So what I realized was that it was all placebo effect.
Oh,
I was giving them something and telling them that it was going to do this, and for most people, it did that. And this sad state of affairs dragged on through the summer, and the week of my birthday, I went to the National Cannabis Industry Association show and saw all this cool technology and talked to all these people who were doing all these cool products. And I realized that I was about 8 weeks out from beginning manufacturing of the Perfect line, and everything was BS, that I couldn't really do it. So on the night of my birthday, I went and had dinner and saw the new Tarantino movie and went home. Sorry, cough
okay.
again.
You got a cough. You got a cough. I know you're not smoking because I'm looking at you here. So I'm.
No, I'm definitely not smoking.
Sorry, you're choking.
But anyway, so what happened was
So you saw Once a Time. You saw Brad Pitt. You saw Margot
saw
Robbie.
Leo.
You saw Margot Robbie. You saw them all.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
What happened?
And I went home that night and was really kind of depressed, simply because I didn't know how to really do what I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
Which was make a blend that had a distinct effect that I could prove in a person and prove in a lab. So I have a dream in the middle of the night and I see the answer. I'm not kidding.
Come on.
Nope.
Go on. I believe in dreams.
Yeah, so do I now. So I have this dream in the middle of the night. I wake up, I write down what I saw in the dream. I wake up the next morning and I really am reticent about looking at what I wrote down because I thought, it's going to be some nonsense. But it wasn't. And it gave me this idea for taking the sauce from a strain and cold infusing it into the flower to restore an entourage.
And what was the central image of this dream, by the way? A refrigerator? What?
No, it's really funny. I was looking at my table and at what I used to normally blend, and sitting on my table was a jar of sauce from one of my favorite concentrate manufacturers. And that gave me the idea. It was like, wait a second. I can take those terpenes and use them to replace the ones that are lost when I touch the flower.
Got it. So let's talk about some things that I really want to know the answers to. Like, what do these things feel like, and how are you marketing them? You're not selling strains? What are you selling? Effects?
Yep. But I'm selling effects that actually happen.
Yeah, that sounds pretty amazing. Go on.
The first three are Happy Camper. It's Giggle Weed. It makes you laugh. It makes everything kind of absurd. Because everything is absurd. So it just relaxes you to the point where that happens.
Okay.
But it's not sleepy. 2, the second thing we're doing is a product called Pick Me Up. And Pick Me Up is exactly that. Instead of making you sleepy, it stimulates you, but below the point where you get edgy and anxious and for some people paranoid. And then the third product is Nightcap, and it's simply really a product designed to help you sleep. And that's the toughest one because most people have most formulators have an incomplete understanding of how terpenes work, so they use the wrong terpenes or they
They're
use CBD.
using CBD or CBN. What are they using? CBN's
Yeah,
not really not a terpene.
they use
Really.
CBD a lot. The problem with CBD is that it's actually wake promoting, and so it works for about 2 weeks until you've kind of caught up on some sleep, and then it stops working, keeps you up.
Isn't that dose dependent?
Yes, to some degree, but most people are using something within the 5 to 20 milligram dose range.
Yeah.
Right.
So these are all smokable? These are all
all inhalable.
All joints,
I actually they're joints and ground flower in a jar, small jar. It's 1.5 grams, but it's equivalent in potency to about an eighth. And so
1.5 grams is equal to an eighth. Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. Actually exceeds it in terpene content.
So you smoke a joint for a week? What's the deal? How does it work?
Yeah, it's great. It actually tastes really good when you relight it, which also may be another breakthrough.
That's rare.
It's the only one I've ever tried that really does taste good the second time you light it.
And does it look like a joint? Tell me what it looks like. I mean, obviously you're going to send me a picture, right? Show me one. Hold one up. Can you show me?
I can't hold one up. I can go get one and hold one up. Hold on. Let me go grab it. So frozen. That's the key.
Frozen. They're delivered frozen to a dispensary?
Yeah.
And dispensaries are actually prepared to store these things?
No, we're going to give them a freezer.
Okay.
I guess that's what Clarence Birdsall had to do, right?
I don't know. Birdsall. You have to go back and talk to Clarence and see.
Yeah, exactly. So this is our joint. It's called a Perfecto.
Perfecto.
You'll notice it has 2 crutches.
2 filters?
Yeah, crutches.
Crutches.
They're not really filters per se. They're just rolled paper.
I see. Okay.
And then you could cut this for how much you need.
Like in half?
Give the rest to a friend. Save it for later. It's really oily, so it doesn't fall out of the joint.
Extraordinary.
It
looks like the size of a cigarette. It looks like like a regular.
It's very small. Very small. It's a half a gram, but it's really strong. So you really only need a couple of hits.
Now, how do you sell these? By the pre-roll or by the? You said ground flower. How much is a pre-roll?
We sell it in a jar. The pre-rolls are $25. The ground flower is $50.
You are an expensive proposition.
They are an expensive proposition, but the price of perfection. And really, I mean, it's like we are the high end as far as cannabis goes, as far as the quality of the effect. And so the thing is that, I think for some people, it's going to be, a special occasion thing.
Yep.
But for everyone I know, it's going to be the only thing they want to smoke. I mean, because I've completely ruined my staff at work. They don't want to smoke anything else. Once you try the complete entourage that's available in the plant, you don't want to smoke any other cannabis. It's just not.
I just can't wait to be ruined by you. Thank you. I'm literally looking forward to this ruination. Sounds amazing.
I've always wanted to push you down that road, Joe.
I know.
Finally, the time has come
for my road to ruin. You're going to be the one.
Exactly. It may be a documentary. It may be a podcast. We don't know yet.
Let's document. Let's see how it goes. But is this like a one-hit wonder? Like I hit one hit and I'm done. I'm satisfied.
I think.
Talk to me a little bit more about the experience.
That'd be too much. And the reason is that there's sometimes when you don't want to be one and done.
That's right.
That the perfect high is being 1/4 done. And so, like most people I know who use these take 3 to 4 inhalations to get where they want to go. But you can sit and share half of one of these Perfectos, so effectively 1/4 gram, with 3 or 4 people, and everybody will be just fine.
Just fine. What is the THC content of a Perfecto, may I ask?
34 is my target.
High.
Oh yeah. Well,
I'm never going to get to the end of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood on a Perfecto, right? No. This is the point. I'm too old school for this, right? Okay, go on. Tell me.
No, you're not too old school. You'll just have to change your behavior. In other words, if you've been drinking, fine, lagers for a long time, and I present you with a bottle of mezcal, don't drink it like the lagers.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you just take a lighter touch with it. That's all. And it goes farther, and you can relight it. So you can really dial in like what works for you.
Interesting. And how have you tested this? Who have you tested it with? How many people? What effects? Where?
Basically, I mean, we've tested it with over 100 people now. And actually, now that we went to ArtView last week, we probably doubled that. And then we're going to Hall of Flowers in early April, and we'll expand from there.
Great.
But yeah, I took it to my absolutely snobbiest, most experienced buddies. So guys like Mojave Richmond and Rob Clark. And, Rob Clark, has been there since the beginning, for the most part. And he wrote Marijuana Botany and
you're talking about Robert Connell Clark. That's how he's known in the world. Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah. He's amazing, and a great guy. And his line that he actually gave me permission to use was, if pre-rolls tasted like this, I'd smoke them, which was the best thing ever.
Yeah. That's great. So is the idea to keep releasing new blends, new effects, new different highs? How are you going to be describing the other highs?
So we've got different entourages. So on the launch pad, we have the Dolce Special.
Thank you.
Sex pot to encourage yoking. Okay.
Love it.
I think you will.
I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the terpene what are the terpene blends that encourage yoking?
So it's primarily a mild psychedelic effect that kind of opens your heart a little bit.
Oh wow!
And so the things that do that are things like limonene, and we've got a few tricks up our sleeve there. So yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, open your heart. Yoking. What are you calling it? Yoke? What are you calling it?
No, we're calling it sex pot.
Sex pot. I like it. Great name.
Yeah.
Go on.
And then we have brainstorm, which is to basically encourage association and improvisation. I kind of based it on what my music buddies like.
Love it.
So we'll do that, and then we've got what's the last one we're doing? We're doing brainstorm. We're doing sex pot. And there's one other that's just escaping me right now.
Not chillax or anything, right?
No. But I'll get you the name.
Now, are these? I want to ask you. So there are some people who are, sort of THC averse. I may be one of them, actually. I used to do a lot of hyperemesis, a lot of puking when I was smoking. I think strong varieties. I'm not really sure what brought it on, right? So I pulled it back, and I started smoking less powerful varieties, and I started using a vaporizer, which seemed to solve that problem. Are these?
That's funny. I can tell you like what's going on with that.
Tell me, because no one's been able to. Go on.
Okay. So I think there are many theories about cannabinoid hyperemesis.
Yeah.
But the one that makes the most sense to me is the hippocampus in the brain, part of which regulates nausea. It has a very rich endocannabinoid system. And when you start doing a lot of THC, you downregulate that endocannabinoid system.
Yep.
Particularly hard. It's particularly hard on the hippocampus. And so the theory that I read, which I thought was just fascinating, is that you basically exhaust your hippocampal endocannabinoid system for that particular area of the hippocampus, and you lose your ability to control nausea with your endocannabinoid system.
Wow.
And so until you stop and let it upregulate, you've got that problem. Now, you're never going to have that problem with our stuff. I mean, I guess if you just smoked it compulsively and constantly, you could. But I try to build our entourages so they have a little bit of a seatbelt. We have not had, I think I've had one report of dysphoric reaction, like somebody not having a good time, of the 200 people who tried our blends. And it was the one that I would predict would do it, which was the high caryophyllene blend, the pick-me-up blend.
Pick-me-up, yeah.
Yep.
What about using them in a vaporizer, though? So the ground flower, does the vaporizer is it more enhanced with a vaporizer? Is it not as enhanced? Is it a pointless
Well,
exercise?
you got to understand how a vaporizer works, and most people don't, because the vaporizer companies are not particularly good at explaining how to use their products. Okay,
That's right. Yeah.
They basically give it to you and say, "Turn it on." Okay, vaporizing is smoking in incredibly slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Lower
at
heat.
first, you're just getting the most volatile compounds, the terpenes. And because they're the only ones that have the taste, people stop before they get the full cannabinoid load.
That's right.
And so what it is that even though vapes are more efficient over time of getting everything off the plant, most people stop before they do get everything off the plant. And so what they get is they get a very terpy high.
Yep.
All right. And
it doesn't last very long. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Easy to metabolize. Yeah.
So would
you just have to have more patience. Use less and do it for longer.
So for yours, same thing applies then, right?
Exactly. So
perfect.
I mean, really, like a full load in a Mighty, the Storson Bickle vaporizer. Yeah, that lasts a long time. Used with a lot of people.
Now, you were what I forgot to include in your CV, as we talked in the beginning, was that you actually spent, I don't know, a year or two strain hunting, going out and trying to find old varieties. Mm-hmm. And you know, revivify them, I guess, and maybe in different climates. Were you doing it that way? Were you moving them from Hawaii and different places like that into California, or were you just trying to sort of help them grow in their natural habitat?
I mean, I'm trying to keep them where they're acclimated. You know, I mean, the thing is that the stuff that's become acclimated to Hawaiian weather isn't going to do well in any part of California except way down by San Diego.
Yeah.
You know, there's that one little tiny part of California where you can grow macadamia nuts. That's
where it's going to grow well. But my question is this sort of a substitute for grabbing some of the more land racy strains, the difficult to find strains that really don't grow well in North America, but you can mix them up in the lab and sort of come close to things like this? Or is this...
Oh, yeah. But the thing is that it's funny. The one thing I've learned about most of the landrace varieties of cannabis, they have very, very simple entourages. Okay, so, you know, the irony is that almost all the hazes and a lot of these varieties that were bred from land races, they're all pretty much slightly myrcene dominant, don't really produce that many terps or that much as far as the terp entourage go. Yeah. And so what you're basically getting is a THC effect.
Have you tried?
Which makes sense. Because that's what people were looking for.
That's what people were looking for. Now, have you tried smoking or otherwise ingesting terpenes without any THC?
Yeah, they're very chemy and kind of feel weird. Remember, terpenes were developed by plants
as defense mechanisms, right? They were defending their territory.
Right. There was a war 350 million years ago between plants and animals. Right. Okay. And plants couldn't move, so they evolved chemicals to control insect nervous systems. So when you do these pure compounds, they're not very interesting at all. They're kind of a drag. They typically result in headaches, and it's kind of a loopy, not particularly pleasant high. And I mean, I've learned that recently, being in a room with inadequate ventilation, doing formulation work, and all of a sudden I'm like turning around to my coworkers, going, "Are you high?" They're going, "Yeah, we're high." And you have to go out and like take a 20-minute terp break.
This is just from smelling terpenes in the air. Yeah. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. Not ingesting them, not smoking them, not inhaling them at all.
Just yeah. Well, I mean, inhaling them, but inhaling them, you know, secondhand, as it were.
Yeah. When does Perfect hit the market?
End of the month. Yeah.
Well, so what month? We don't know when we're running this, so tell me.
Okay.
End of February.
End of February 2020 is the target. Maybe beginning of March 2020.
And where
we're having our big come out in our big launch at the Hall of Flowers out in the desert in April.
Oh, good. I'll be in California in April. Maybe I'll come. Where in the desert?
Hell yes.
Where in the desert? Where's it going to be?
I think it's going to be in Palm Desert.
How amazing. And how many dispensaries will they be found in? How are you selecting, or how are they choosing you? How does it work?
I mean, really, we just want the people who like understand what we're trying to do and appreciate it. And we know that, I mean, once people try our stuff, they love it. So we're going to be kind of picky, but we just want to make sure that they're going to take care of the product.
Keep it cool, keep it cold, keep it at a certain temperature. So that also means that when I buy it, I have to keep it at a certain temperature, right? I have to go buy a perfect refrigerator.
Ice cream.
Well, do I need a special refrigerator for your product?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Freezer.
Yeah.
Freezer. Okay.
Yep.
That's great. You know, I look, you're either you are a really brilliant guy, obviously, and you're a great salesperson for this product because obviously you really like it and it really delivers. So,
I mean, it really isn't. There's no magic to it. It's just finally figuring out how to do it.
Amazing. So I can't wait to try it. I can't wait to get to California to try it.
Yeah, you're going to love it. It's right up your alley.
I think I'm going to love it.
It'll be better. It'll be better than the nasal spray. I promise you. And I didn't invent that.
Spray. I tried the nasal spray once. I did.
And I watched you. Like fill Kleenex after Kleenex at dinner afterwards.
That was it. You remember that night, right? Got all. So what that was for the listeners is somebody had created something called a nano encapsulated spray serum that you put up your nose, but it never left your nostrils. It got caught. It was so oily and gunky. It got stuck in your nose hairs, right? It got stuck in my sinuses. It was just an endless. God, I can't believe you remember that. It was hours to get that going out of my system. Hours.
That's the problem with nano encapsulation, and one of the reasons that I didn't go down that path, because you have to, you get it in the cage, but once you've liberated it from the cage, where does the cage go?
Up your nose, and it never leaves.
Up your nose, or into your fat cells, or not good.
Listen, before I let you go, one more question is I'm thinking about topicals. I'm thinking about people with arthritis and real pain. Have you tested? Does this have, like, for example, I don't know, have you come up with anesthetize? Is there something that actually really works, maybe even with capsaicin, to block pain in a more effective way with your system?
Well, I think our nightcap product is probably our best pain product. I mean, it really, really works.
But that's inhalation.
I
mean, as a topical, so I can apply spot relief. No.
Not yet. I think that's probably something I'll look at maybe next year. But that's really tricky. You got 7 layers of skin you got to deal with.
Yeah.
And they're a really effective barrier, thank heavens. And so getting to the active endocannabinoid system in the skin is challenging, which is why a lot of people. I mean, honestly, I think the Papa and Barkley guys with their topicals, their THC topicals, have probably, I think, the most effective formulation out there right now. I really like it.
It's the THC formula. I think the THC, for some reason, I know they always say that CBD gets into the skin, into the receptors more quickly, but I think the THC helps it get in maybe more deeply, for me anyway, when I use it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I don't think most CBD topicals have enough CBD to work.
I think that's right.
And I know that from and I know that from working with Tomasz Biro at Phytex. He's the world's leading expert on ECS function in the skin.
And what is the minimum would you need for a good topical to work, do you think?
4%.
4%, yeah. It's really high.
That means over a gram in a 1 ounce jar. Yeah, that's a lot of
almost
CBD.
Not findable. Yeah, exactly. Okay,
I mean, you can find it. You're just going to pay $200 for it.
Yeah, I know. I know it's a lot. We could talk forever. Let's continue when I'm in California with a little perfection in my hand or in my mouth, and we'll do that together. Okay, I look forward to it, Michael. Thank you for joining me again. Great to talk to you.
Hi, listeners. We are always on the lookout for great things to talk about on the Brave New Weed podcast, and we'd love to hear from you. You can always email us at bravenewweedcast@gmail.com with links to articles, interesting news stories, personal accounts of things that you've done, or leads on books or products that we should know about. You can always contact us at bravenewweedcast@gmail.com.
Are you ready for a little taste of perfect?
Yeah.
Does it sound like something you
Sign
want?
me up. I mean, I have to try this thing. First I want to talk about like this design of this new product, right? It's like a new joint. We've got, he didn't call it a filter, but it's the rolled paper style filters, but there's more than one in there. So if you need to separate this thing, break it in half, divide it, save some for later, you have more options. That's fascinating to me. So I love just the conceptual design of the packaging and delivery system of this, but then also this whole sort of like freeze-dried live plant entourage versus cured, plants that have been cured and lost in the curing process, shipped and packaged or aged and lost in that process. It's something that I've asked myself about with storage. Like, okay, I bought some new fresh flower. I know that I'm not going to smoke it all right now. How do I maintain its life cycle so that it's still just as good in a week, in 2 weeks, maybe even in 3 weeks as it is the day that I picked it up? And even then you have to ask yourself, how long has it been on the shelf? How long has it sat there before it got to me? What was lost in that amount of time and in those processes? So this whole sort of like, it's probably a misnomer to call it freeze dried, but like flash frozen, shipped and packaged frozen, sort of trying to preserve the freshest thing as though it's the living plant. Like, I'm fascinated. I have to get some. I have to try this.
So Matthew, listen, thanks a lot for joining again today. Is there anything else we have to say?
I just want to take the last opportunity here at the end of the show to extend out to all of our listeners the wish that you all please be safe. There's a whole lot going on out there with this whole coronavirus thing. I do think it is relevant that we take it seriously without panicking and do what we can, because even if you are a healthy person who is not worried about this, who can easily survive that virus, that does not necessarily mean that everybody that you encounter, should you become infected, is going to have the same immune system as you, and you might be putting another person at risk as a carrier of this thing. There's just so much that we need to be paying attention to.
We actually have to think about each other.
Yeah. So like, we care about you all of our listeners, and we love you a lot, and we hope that you love yourselves and others as well, and do the right things, and just please be safe out there and take care of yourselves.
Thanks, Matthew. Talk to you next week.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks for listening to the Brave New Weed podcast. This episode and all future episodes are made possible by amazing listeners like yourself. If you like what you've heard, we encourage you to show your support by giving $1 a month for special access and rewards on patreon.com/bravenewweed. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram via @bravenewweed. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/bravenewweed. And remember, you can always find more information about us or information discussed in each episode by pointing your favorite browser to bravenewweed.com.